Buckle up because today's story is an absolute wild ride. We're diving deep into a film packed with twists that will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very last second. But before we unravel this masterpiece, I need a huge favor from you guys. Smash that like button, share this video with a friend who loves movies, and drop a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts on this one. Now, right into the action. Every time Ma Jinju came home, she would slip into her custom high heels and habitually extend her arm in front of her mother-in-law, reporting in the formal manner expected. Although she felt frustrated, she still maintained composure, reminding herself that families often had these rigid rules. What she didn't realize was that her husband, Ha Moo-hyuk, had already emotionally drifted away. But she was no trophy wife, she was a prominent lawyer. She took pride in her identity as Ha Moo-hyuk's wife, but when she noticed that the main table only had 3 seats, she felt uneasy. Learning from a waiter that the mother-in-law had instructed this arrangement, she was initially calm. Her portion was eventually placed at the table. A sigh of relief escaped her as guests gradually took their seats, but then she noticed her spot had been removed again. She hadn't expected her mother-in-law to be so extreme. When her mother-in-law introduced her grandson, Ma Jinju immediately tried to assert her presence, only to be interrupted. It was clear her mother-in-law didn't acknowledge her at all. Throughout the event, she was treated like a ghost, entirely invisible even to outsiders. Ma Jinju had her own mother, who ran a restaurant. Her mother believed her daughter was living happily, but she could see the frustration hidden in her daughter's eyes. Sensing her mood, she reminded Ma Jinju, "As long as you're happy, I'll be happy." This advice would later prove pivotal. Back at home, Ma Jinju greeted her mother-in-law politely, but the atmosphere was distant. "I see you've come back from your parents' house. Did you have breakfast there?" Ma Jinju was immediately moved, yet she had a condition. If she won her upcoming lawsuit, she wanted to call her mother-in-law Dr. Mom. She didn't know this case would completely upend her life. In a flash, she found herself at the center of a storm, even facing potential imprisonment. The worst part was that all of it had been orchestrated by her mother-in-law from the start. Ha Moo-hyuk initially considered warning his mother, reminding her, "She's my wife, don't go too far." But mother-in-law was sharp. Long emotional attachments only distract from great matters. Ha Moo-hyuk seemed to understand. Soon, he contacted Ma Jinju in prison. She thought he was finding a way to help her, but he told her to wait. Years passed. Though she wanted him to help for the sake of their child, he clarified. They were divorced and had no further connection. What Ma Jinju didn't know was that Ha Moo-hyuk had an even crueler plan. At a meal, she merely asked for a small allowance. He erupted, "I already gave you 1,000. How much more do you need? Are you raising a kept man?" The wife realized he had no intention of providing support. Frustrated, she countered, "If I work part-time at a supermarket, I could make at least 5,000. Why can't a housewife work?" His anger flared, but hers could no longer be contained. Predictably, she was no match for him physically, and the beatings continued. Finally, the wife filed for divorce. Unbeknownst to her, the husband had hired a top defense lawyer, and the law firm initially didn't even want to take the case, knowing such cases rarely succeed. Yet, as the law firm president, he spared no expense for his wife. Mother-in-law promised, "If you win this case, I'll give you the vacant president position." Even her son questioned it. "Mom, are you serious?" But Ma Jinju was determined, preparing thoroughly. When presented with a medical report by her ex-husband, she countered with evidence that Ha Moo-hyuk had treated the child similarly. Her aim was to prove the disputes were emotionally driven, not malicious. However, the evidence was insufficient, and the next court date would be decisive. Just then her assistant brought shocking news. The husband was gay. This secret, likely unknown even to Ma Jinju herself, explained why she had been so emotional over custody. She had undergone multiple IVF procedures and finally conceived. She was determined to obtain custody, but if the truth came out, she would inevitably lose the case. At the office, seeing lawyer Ma's smug expression, she asked her assistant, "Has anyone taken the vacant president position?" Upon learning it had, she felt deceived. Confronting her mother-in-law, she demanded, You promised me the position. Didn't our agreement count? Mother-in-law countered, did you marry into this family just for ambition? Ma Jinju realized her mother-in-law had treated her like a thief. For the first time, she declared, from now on, I'll act according to my own plans. Predictably, her mother-in-law anticipated her moves. Ma Jinju pretended to make a phone call in the restroom, instructing her assistant not to tell her ex-husband about the secret. Issues like custody, assets, and decision-making would all legally remain with Ma Jinju. The wife, still confused, asked, is my husband really gay? How do you know? This maneuver only fueled her mother-in-law's desire to manipulate Ma Jinju further. In court, despite losing the case, she was shocked when she was suddenly arrested. She could never have imagined being framed by Ha Moo-hyuk and mother-in-law. Even more, 10 days prior, her mother-in-law had secretly arranged a helper for her son. Ha Moo-hyuk merely glanced at the arrangement and agreed. When Ma Jinju received the notice, it was already too late. The news was broadcasting allegations that a wealthy family had used a fake divorce to illegally send their child to a school overseas. It was a serious crime. Panicked, she immediately confronted her mother-in-law. Did you file something behind my back? She demanded. Her mother-in-law remained calm. Think about it. How else would your son have gotten the opportunity to study abroad? As a lawyer, Ma Jinju understood how serious the situation was. Then she remembered something. Not long ago, her mother-in-law had asked to organize some documents and had taken her personal seal. Suddenly, a terrible possibility crossed her mind. She begged Ha Moo-hyuk to find a solution. Facing prison, she was desperate. Yet he casually reassured her. It's fine. At least not everyone in the family is going to prison. Our law firm will figure something out. When they met again, Ma Jinju was already behind bars. She thought her husband had finally come to help her, but instead he told her to wait a few years. She was furious. It sounded as if he wanted her to rot in prison while everyone else moved on with their lives. Then he coldly explained that the fake divorce had merely been a strategic move. Thanks to her sacrifice, their son was now able to study overseas. Ma Jinju stared at him in disbelief. What do you mean by that? At last, Ha Moo-hyuk stopped pretending. He revealed that he was preparing for a major political and legal appointment and that everything had been done to strengthen the influence of their law firm. In that moment, Ma Jinju realized she had been nothing more than a disposable pawn. Determined not to break, she printed out a picture of Ha Moo-hyuk and taped it to a punching bag. Every day she kicked and punched it. She swore that once she got out of prison, she would make him pay for everything. Meanwhile, Ha Moo-hyuk was enjoying life. He was even hosting an extravagant engagement party. A woman named Ms. Rowe stood outside the venue, staring at the wedding announcement. She had been promised marriage, yet another woman was taking her place. That very night, Ms. Rowe was found dead. The next day, her grandfather held up protest signs and publicly declared that his granddaughter had not committed suicide. He demanded that prosecutors reopen the investigation into her death. By coincidence, Prosecutor Dong witnessed the protest and immediately recognized Ms. Rowe as the woman who had caused a scene at the engagement party the previous night. News outlets soon began reporting the mysterious circumstances surrounding Ms. Rowe's death. A waitress who had worked at the party became curious. While serving guests, she had accidentally recorded part of an argument on her phone. The footage showed Ms. Rowe threatening a man. "Cancel the engagement," she warned. "Otherwise, I'll expose our relationship." The man she was threatening was her lover, and someone else's future son-in-law. The video continued. After Ms. Rowe left, the man ordered one of his subordinates to take care of it. Not long afterward, Ms. Rowe died. At the same time, Ma Jinju's mother began piecing things together. Her daughter had been framed and imprisoned, and now this young woman had died under suspicious circumstances. She started to suspect that her son-in-law was far more dangerous than anyone realized. When she saw that Prosecutor Dong was handling the investigation, she decided to help. She went to the prosecutor's office intending to share what she knew. Unfortunately, Ha Moo-hyuk spotted her. Curious about why his mother-in-law was there, he called her and pretended it was an innocent conversation. but that phone call would ultimately lead her to her death. Back in prison, Ma Jinju was vowing revenge against her husband when she suddenly received tragic news. She was granted temporary leave to attend a funeral. She rushed to the memorial hall. The moment she saw her mother's portrait, she froze. How could this happen? According to her assistant, her mother had jumped from the abandoned factory that once belonged to Ma Jinju's late father. Overcome with guilt, Ma Jinju blamed herself. She believed her imprisonment had pushed her mother into despair. When Ha Mu-hyuk appeared at the funeral, her anger exploded. If you hadn't framed me, I wouldn't have gone to prison. My mother would still be alive. But Ma Jinju didn't know the truth. Her mother had not committed suicide. She had been murdered. After discovering evidence that linked her son-in-law to Ms. Ro's death, she had planned to expose him and prove that he was responsible for framing her daughter. Hoping to save Ma Jinju, she secretly contacted Prosecutor Dong. Using a public phone booth, she told him, "Ms. Ro was murdered, not a suicide. I have a video that proves it. All I want is for you to reopen the case of my daughter, who was wrongly imprisoned." Unfortunately, Ha Mu-hyuk noticed her suspicious behavior. Sensing that she was hiding something, he followed her movements. When he confronted her, she nervously claimed she was only checking whether her daughter's sentence could be reduced. After he left, she finally relaxed. But moments later, a man approached her and introduced himself as Prosecutor Dong's assistant. Trusting him, she followed. What she didn't know was that the real Prosecutor Dong had just missed her by minutes. Later, Prosecutor Dong wondered why she had never arrived at their scheduled meeting. Meanwhile, Ha Mu-hyuk put on a show of kindness by personally arranging his mother-in-law's funeral. During the service, Ma Jinju made one final request. "Bring my son here." At least let him say goodbye to his grandmother one last time. Ma Jinju had to suppress the fury boiling inside her. Ha Mu-hyuk had framed her so flawlessly, handled the divorce without her noticing, and allowed another woman into his life. How could someone so heartless even be trusted with their son? Still, she quietly took note of everything. One day, someone approached her, asking if she was certain about a donation. If so, they could help arrange it, which would allow her to apply for early release. Early release became her sole goal, though she had no idea how valuable this assistance would later prove. Soon, she was released from prison. Breathing deeply, she resolved to start over. She had expected to face the world alone, but unexpectedly, she encountered a benefactor, a former housewife whom she had helped in a previous case. This woman had gone from being penniless to wealthy, thanks to Ma Jinju's aid. Inspired, Ma Jinju developed a bold plan. Together, they would establish a law firm that helped women fight against abusive husbands. One day, while a group of young men played basketball, a bizarre scene caught Ma Jinju's attention. A girl was slowly climbing onto a rooftop, and as more people gathered, the woman's anger flared. Her father, a well-known news anchor, was suddenly caught in a scandal. He had been betrayed by a colleague, and when the woman appeared on a live broadcast, her first instinct was to protect her own future. But she was accused of abusing her position at a KTV, with no chance to defend herself. The footage, combined with surveillance images, quickly placed her in the public spotlight. Even the station director refused her the courtesy of an explanation, demanding she leave immediately. Seeing her husband's scandal dominate the news, the woman sought out her new law firm. She specifically requested lawyer Saare, knowing Saare specialized in divorce cases. Even though the husband was still entangled in legal battles with another woman, the woman knew that her husband's case was destined to fail. Something unusual. Around the same time, the girl's mother received a call from her daughter, who said she couldn't handle it and needed to leave. They rushed to the scene, and the girl's life was hanging by a thread. Saare acted swiftly, catching her just in time. This desperate moment revealed how much the girl wanted to survive. It convinced Saare that removing them from the toxic household was urgent. Returning from the incident, Saare learned that the ex-husband had actually hired a team from her former law firm to defend him. Saare's expression was cautious. The team understood Saare's abilities and knew this case would not be simple. Meanwhile, another divorce case came to light, and the wife had specifically requested Saare as her lawyer, Ma Jinju's former self. Ha Moo-hyuk was skeptical. How could someone recently released from prison take on such a high-stakes case? Suray's team, however, was ready. They learned of a sudden attack on a well-known news anchor, rushed to the hospital, and realized that the previous sexual assault case had been fabricated. This attack was orchestrated by the same party. Fortunately, drone footage captured the events, proving that the woman had not initiated any physical confrontation. This evidence exposed Ha Moo-hyuk's lies about the injuries. To ensure that he would confess, they devised a careful plan. Ha Moo-hyuk, unaware, fell straight into their trap. Ma Jinju forced herself onto a rooftop ramp, jumping with full force to channel her resolve and unleash her potential. It was precisely the move they had planned. Soon, both sides' lawyers met, presenting only the recorded footage, which was enough to settle the case without a fight. But thanks to Sae and the woman's strategy, he was trapped. The woman, now free, left with her daughter, triumphant and relieved. Sae couldn't believe how smoothly the whole first post-prison case had gone. But she hadn't anticipated the next client, someone who would immediately leave her speechless. It was her own former adversary, quietly observing on the street. The woman only stopped for a sip of water, but in 30 seconds, an unexpected event unfolded. By the time Sae's team reacted, Sae had been taken away. Her release had marked a new beginning. She had established a firm, secured her first victory, but this second client threatened to complicate everything. My days. The reason lawyer Sae hesitated was simple. The woman sitting in front of her was none other than Ha Moo-hyuk's current wife. Yet the current wife simply laughed bitterly. If I had known what kind of man he really was, I never would have married him. Sae sighed. With my history, don't you think it's inappropriate for me to handle your divorce case? The woman shook her head. I only recently learned the truth. The man who framed you and sent you to prison deceived me too. My marriage was arranged for political reasons. Now, however, Ha Moo-hyuk's true nature was finally showing. Her father had been arrested in a corruption investigation, and the family's political influence was collapsing. Almost immediately, mother-in-law began complaining about her. One day, the current wife overheard Ha Moo-hyuk and mother-in-law discussing how to throw her out of the family with nothing. Unfortunately for them, she heard every word. Realizing she had been caught listening, mother-in-law stopped pretending. If you're leaving this family, you'll leave with absolutely nothing. The woman was furious. My father helped this family countless times. Now that he's in trouble, you're just going to abandon me? But she had underestimated how shameless Ha Moo-hyuk could be. On the surface, he comforted her and told her not to worry. Then he suddenly brought up an old video and praised her appearance, leaving her confused. A few days later, he finally showed her the footage. The moment she saw it, her face turned pale. Although she explained that she had never met the man again after getting married, Ha Moo-hyuk insisted the recording had no visible date. It was obvious that he intended to use the video as leverage to force her into a divorce settlement with nothing. Realizing she needed help, she turned to the one person who understood him best, his ex-wife, Sae. She asked Sae to represent her in the divorce. Only a few days later, Ha Moo-hyuk learned that his wife had met with Sae. Nervous, he immediately ordered his men to bring her back. But by then it was too late. Sae has already accepted the case, his assistant informed him. When he called his wife, she ignored every call. Meanwhile, she remained at Sae's office preparing their strategy. Sae stepped out briefly to coordinate with another attorney. During that short absence, the woman was kidnapped. The kidnappers mocked her. Blame your father for losing his power. We were ordered to bring you home so you can sign the divorce papers. Sae quickly realized they had made a mistake. The kidnappers had confused her with the current wife. Just then, the kidnappers' vehicle was rear-ended. Sae's teammates had caught up with them. Without hesitation, they repeatedly rammed the kidnappers' car and forced it to stop. The rescue was successful. When Ha Moo-hyuk heard what happened, he exploded with anger. I told you to bring my wife. Instead, you kidnapped my ex-wife. Do you have any idea what happens when you make Sae angry? Fearing further complications, he changed tactics. Instead of force, he persuaded his wife to cooperate with him in a carefully staged performance. Neither of them realized that someone in the crowd was watching closely. The person appeared prepared for something. Then Ha Moo-hyuk put on an impressive show. A man in the crowd suddenly rushed forward holding a weapon. At first, it looked like an assassination attempt against his wife. Without hesitation, Ha Moo-hyuk jumped in front of her and took the injury himself. The crowd erupted in shock. His wife stumbled backward in disbelief. She instantly understood what he was doing. This wasn't heroism. It was political theater. He had orchestrated the entire incident to rebuild his public image. The performance worked perfectly. Ha Moo-hyuk regained the image of a devoted husband and family man. Soon afterward, he formally announced his campaign. At last, his wife understood. He had used her from the beginning. Some people cannot be forgiven, and they certainly cannot be trusted. Ha Moo-hyuk continued making grand promises. If elected, I will help rebuild the ideal family for every citizen. But just as the crowd applauded, Sara stepped forward with evidence. She revealed that she herself had recently been kidnapped because of him. She exposed how he discarded people the moment they lost their usefulness. Is someone like this really qualified to run for office? She asked. Ha Moo-hyuk quietly instructed his assistant to remove her from the scene, but it was already too late. The media amplified the story across every news outlet. Ha Moo-hyuk had no choice but to hold an emergency press conference with his wife beside him. He attempted to paint himself as the victim. He claimed that Sara had been harassing him for years. Then he reminded reporters that Sara had once been imprisoned. The implication was obvious. Why would you believe the words of a former inmate? And with that, he tried to turn public opinion against her once again. I'm grateful to have such a caring wife by my side. The reporters then turned their attention to his wife, asking her to share a few words. Sara arrived at the press conference. What happened next completely destroyed Ha Moo-hyuk's carefully crafted image. Instead of supporting him, his wife exposed everything. Most shocking of all, she had brought evidence. Unknown to everyone else, Sara and the current wife had already formed an alliance. They had agreed on one thing: Ha Moo-hyuk had to pay for everything he had done. As his wife continued revealing one secret after another, Sara added her own testimony. Together, they completely destroyed his election campaign. The media immediately surrounded him. Now that you've used your wife for political gain, are you planning to divorce her too? Unable to answer, he fled the scene in humiliation. But Ha Moo-hyuk wasn't willing to accept defeat. Mother-in-law mocked him relentlessly. You're pathetic. Your entire future was ruined by two women. Those words pushed him over the edge. Meanwhile, Sara continued fighting for one goal above all others: getting her son back. She didn't even know what he looked like now, but that picture fueled her determination every day. Unknown to her, Ha Moo-hyuk hated her more than ever. His current wife and his ex-wife had joined forces, destroyed his political ambitions, and even secured a favorable divorce settlement that cost him a fortune. Sara herself had received nothing when she was divorced years ago, but seeing the current wife successfully claim her share of the marital assets gave her a sense of satisfaction. An unexpected visitor stormed into Sara's office. She slapped Sara across the face. For a moment, Sara nearly struck back. But she stopped herself. Fortunately, the current wife had already provided valuable information about her son's life overseas, as well as documents related to Ha Moo-hyuk's activities. The successful divorce settlement had already cost Ha Moo-hyuk a large portion of his wealth, so it was no surprise that mother-in-law was furious. She continued insulting Sara. Just after mother-in-law left, Sara received a phone call from Ha Moo-hyuk. He offered something she couldn't refuse: a video call with her son. The meeting place was an old location that once held special meaning for them. As expected, Ha Moo-hyuk was already waiting there. But Sara quickly realized he had no intention of letting her speak with their son so easily. Holding the video call over her head, he began taunting her. When Sara called him a worthless human being, his temper exploded. He grabbed her by the throat and nearly choked her. One of his subordinates finally pulled him away. Ha Moo-hyuk claimed he would let her go. But moments later, He had trapped her inside an abandoned building. The weather turned dangerous. The aging structure caught fire. Within minutes, flames spread throughout the building. By the time Ha Mu-hyuk's anger had cooled, he decided to return and release her. But on the way back he heard fire engines rushing past. A terrible realization hit him. Panicked, he ordered the driver to turn around immediately. What he didn't know was that someone else had already reached Saare first. When the rescue team arrived, both Saare and her rescuer were gone. For reasons he couldn't understand, jealousy and regret suddenly stirred within him. The next day, a new employee joined Saare's divorce firm. Nobody suspected anything unusual. While the team discussed whether they should report Ha Mu-hyuk's actions to the police, the newcomer quietly searched through the office. She examined files, then she noticed a photograph showing Saare and Prosecutor Dong together. A satisfied smile appeared on her face. It seemed she had found exactly what she came for. Ironically, Prosecutor Dong didn't notice anything suspicious. His attention was focused elsewhere. A new client had just arrived, and something about her made him uneasy. The woman explained that she had recently taken her car to a repair shop. The mechanic immediately noticed something unusual. After removing a small device hidden beneath the vehicle, he showed it to her. She broke into a cold sweat. It was a GPS tracker. Alarmed, she rushed directly to Saare's office. The strange thing was that she ignored everyone in the room. Instead, she stared directly at Prosecutor Dong. "This is all your fault." Prosecutor Dong was completely confused. Saare immediately sensed that there was more to the story. "Do the two of you know each other?" she asked. The woman smiled. The woman boldly admitted in front of everyone that she and Prosecutor Dong had once dated. After she left, Saare and her team debated whether they should even take her divorce case. The woman was a famous influencer with over 1 million followers, while her husband was a best-selling author who used a wheelchair after becoming disabled in an accident. On social media, the couple constantly showed off their loving marriage. Nothing about them suggested a relationship headed for divorce. Something felt off. To verify her story, Saare's team decided to meet the husband. The man confidently said, "My wife would never divorce me. You saw our live stream last night. We're very much in love." Prosecutor Dong then asked a different question. "Do you know me? Have you ever seen my picture before?" The husband immediately denied it. "No. I've never met you and I've never seen your photo." Just as they suspected, the influencer had lied. Meanwhile, the woman complained to someone over the phone. "I told you Prosecutor Dong wouldn't fall for it." The person on the other end wasn't worried. "Just get him into bed. If you can break up him and Saare, I'll pay you 3 times more." Ever since he saw Prosecutor Dong risk his life to save Saare, he had become convinced that their relationship was more than friendship. Although he had abandoned Saare years ago, seeing another man by her side filled him with jealousy. Prosecutor Dong was secretly investigating the murder case. Back home, mother-in-law continued blaming her son for everything. Finally, Ha Mu-hyuk snapped. "I divorced, remarried, and lost everything because I followed your plans. From now on, I'll do things my own way." Elsewhere, the influencer decided to step up her seduction attempt. Even though Prosecutor Dong had politely told her it was late and suggested continuing their discussion the next day, she refused to miss the opportunity, even pretending she wanted to leave her husband and start a new life with him. But Prosecutor Dong wasn't fooled. "You're really not suited for melodrama," he said bluntly. Caught red-handed, she dropped the act. Just then, Saare arrived. Thinking quickly, the woman threw her arms around Prosecutor Dong. Unfortunately for Dong, Saare witnessed the entire scene. Prosecutor Dong immediately pushed the woman away. "Get out." Furious, the woman later called Ha Mu-hyuk. "That man is impossible. He won't even accept a simple hug. How am I supposed to get him into bed?" What she didn't realize was that Saare overheard the entire conversation. She instantly understood that the woman had been sent to sabotage her. The influencer still had no idea she had crossed people far more dangerous than she expected. The team's attention soon returned to the influencer's marriage. The husband tried to stop his wife during an argument, but she shoved him away. He lost his balance and fell from his wheelchair. Rather than worrying about her injured husband, she panicked over something else. Her luxury designer handbag had been damaged. The husband was devastated. After being treated as less important than a handbag, he secretly called Sare for help. When Sare arrived, she found him injured and helpless at home. "If the housekeeper hadn't gone back to her hometown today, I never would have let anyone see me like this," he admitted. The truth finally came out. His injuries weren't accidents. His wife had been deliberately causing them. She used his wounds to create emotional content for social media and gain more views. Whenever he refused to cooperate, she threatened divorce. When Sare asked why he had endured it for so long, his answer surprised everyone. "I wanted people to think I was living a happy life." Sare gave him two choices: face reality or keep living for other people's approval. The next day, the influencer announced a lavish first anniversary celebration. In reality, it was another stunt designed to generate online traffic. The party began exactly as planned. Then everything went wrong. An older woman suddenly stormed into the event and demanded to know what relationship the influencer had with her husband. At first, the influencer assumed it was another hired actor. "Where did you find this actress? Her performance is amazing." But the woman wasn't acting. She grabbed the influencer by the hair and started attacking her. Meanwhile, the cameras continued filming. Instead of stopping the chaos, the influencer was secretly thrilled. More drama meant more viewers. Soon she took the microphone and began defending herself. "No one can destroy the love between me and my husband." Then she handed the microphone to him. All he had to do was say one simple sentence: "I'll always love you." That would have completed the perfect livestream. Instead, he said three words that stunned everyone: "I want a divorce." The influencer froze. As if things couldn't get worse, someone informed her that over 200,000 people were watching live. The husband finally decided to fight back. Using evidence collected by Sare's firm, he reported her for domestic abuse and online fraud. The authorities immediately launched legal proceedings. Just like that, the influencer's carefully built online empire collapsed. And so, another case was successfully closed by Sare and her team. A brother and sister always brought a photo of their late mother whenever they went out to eat, even reserving a seat for her at the table. Their stepmother never complained, yet when she saw them eating too much cold food, she immediately stopped them. The children often grumbled, but deep down they knew something important. Their stepmother cared for them more sincerely than anyone else. Perhaps because she couldn't have children of her own, she cherished them even more. When the siblings learned that their father was once again considering divorcing their stepmother, they became terrified that she would leave them. To reassure them, she made a promise: "No matter what happens, I will never leave you." Unfortunately, her husband was relentlessly pressuring her to divorce. Furious, she argued with him. "Your company is about to go public. Are you really willing to ruin everything because of some baseless claims?" Fearing that her husband had fallen too deeply under someone's influence, she sought help from Sare, the legendary divorce lawyer who never lost a case. When Sare heard that the woman wanted help with a divorce involving a National Assembly member, she immediately saw an opportunity. If she successfully helped the politician, she might gain a powerful ally against Ha Moo-hyuk. The problem was that the husband had become completely devoted to a self-proclaimed spiritual leader. To investigate, Sare and her team infiltrated one of the group's gatherings while pretending to be believers. They secretly recorded everything. Soon, the cult leader wheeled a cancer patient onto the stage. Raising his hands dramatically, he proclaimed that cosmic power would heal the patient. Then he pushed his hands into the patient's clothing and pulled out a strange bloody object. The crowd erupted in cheers. The cult leader claimed he had physically removed the cancer. He even displayed the object as proof. The followers believed every word. Determined to uncover the truth, one of Sure's teammates risked sneaking into the cult's private area. After investigating the so-called healing room, they confirmed their suspicions. The entire miracle was a scam. Yet the husband stubbornly refused to believe it. He accused them of fabricating the evidence simply to stop his divorce. Sare was speechless. She tried to reason with him, but he immediately ran to warn the cult leader that someone was trying to frame him. The cult leader responded calmly. "Didn't I tell you? Your wife is blocking your future. The two of you are incompatible. You need to divorce her." Just then, one of the children became seriously ill. Instead of taking the child to a hospital, the father insisted on bringing him to the cult leader. The mother desperately tried to stop him, but he shoved her aside. After finally getting her son back, she rushed him for medical treatment. When she asked if he had been given any medicine, the boy weakly muttered that his father had taken it away. The father's explanation drove her into a rage. The pastor said medicine clouds the mind. All he needs is a blessing. Then he added something even crueler. Besides, he's not your biological child. That single sentence finally convinced the woman to seek a divorce. Sare devised an unexpected strategy. Not only would it help the woman gain custody of the children, but it would also create unexpected consequences in Sare's own life. Since the husband trusted the cult leader completely, Sare decided to target one of the leader's most loyal disciples. They uncovered secrets that could be used as leverage and convinced the disciple to cooperate. Faced with the choice between prison and helping them expose the cult, the disciple chose to cooperate. The plan began when a small amount of sleeping medication was secretly added to the cult leader's drink. Later, he awoke to find prosecutors standing before him. He was accused of using supernatural powers to kill people. Immediately, he protested. "I don't have supernatural powers. How could I possibly kill anyone like that?" To strengthen the trap, the disciple pretended to be arrested as well. Together, they acted as if they were searching for a way to escape the charges. In reality, they were baiting the cult leader into exposing his own fraud. The trick worked. Panicking, the cult leader revealed that his so-called miracles were staged using fake bloody props stored in refrigerators. The hidden room was opened, exposing the evidence. Outside, a crowd of shocked followers waited. The cult leader's empire collapsed instantly. News outlets across the country reported the scandal. Taking advantage of the attention, the wife publicly revealed how deeply her husband had fallen under the cult's influence. She explained that he had even refused medical treatment for their sick child and nearly caused irreversible harm. To protect the children, she officially filed for divorce. In the end, she won custody. Grateful for Sare's help, the politician invited her to work as a secretary and advisor. For Sare, it was a valuable opportunity. Meanwhile, Ha Mu-hyuk was struggling. After seeing his ex-wife working closely with a powerful politician, he began scheming again. He suddenly started contacting Sare constantly. He even sent flowers. Sare's response was simple. The flowers ended up in the trash. When Ha Mu-hyuk saw the destroyed bouquet, he realized winning her back would not be easy. Mother-in-law thought he had lost his mind. "Have you been hit on the head? Why are you chasing your ex-wife again?" But Ha Mu-hyuk had his own reasons. He believed that getting close to Sare was the key to rebuilding his influence. One day, during the memorial service for Sare's mother, the team gathered to pay their respects. While arranging offerings, they discussed the unresolved case of Ms. Ro's suspicious death. What they didn't realize was that Ha Mu-hyuk had arrived outside and overheard the conversation. The moment he was spotted, he immediately acted innocent. "I just came to pay respects," he said casually, as if he still belonged there. When he tried using the children as an excuse to stay, Sare's colleagues quickly pushed him out. Still, he had learned something important. Sare's team was investigating Ms. Ro's death. And Ms. Ro had once been his lover. Prosecutor Dong reflected on another mystery. "Your mother wasn't that old. Why would she suddenly take her own life?" Sare pulled out a photograph of her mother. The moment Prosecutor Dong saw it, something felt familiar. Suddenly, he remembered an old surveillance video. A year earlier, a woman had tried to report that Ms. Ro's death was not a suicide. The woman in the footage looked remarkably similar. Sare examined the recording. Her heart stopped. The woman was unmistakably her mother. The timeline matched perfectly. A chilling possibility emerged. What if her mother had never committed suicide? What if she had been murdered because she knew the truth about Ms. Ro's death? And somewhere nearby, another danger was already waiting. A young woman pulled back her curtains and discovered that her boyfriend had been watching her from outside the entire time. What seemed romantic at first glance felt deeply unsettling, and it was only the beginning of another case. When the young woman finally decided to call the police, "If you report me again," he threatened, "breaking a few bones will be the least of your problems." After he left, she barely had time to breathe before someone knocked on her door again. Nervously, she opened it a crack. The person standing outside terrified her even more. Her boyfriend was violent, but this man was different. She had only met him once, yet she had personally witnessed how dangerous he could be. Panicking, she slipped out through the back door. The sound of the door closing immediately caught the man's attention. Unfortunately, her boyfriend was still lurking nearby. Mistaking the stranger for a stalker, the boyfriend charged forward and tried to attack him. Instead, he was effortlessly subdued. In the confusion, the girl escaped. But when she later encountered people searching for her, she instinctively ran again. Before she could get far, her boyfriend grabbed her. Assuming she had found another man, his jealousy exploded. At that moment, Prosecutor Dong happened to intervene. The boyfriend attacked without hesitation. While the two men fought, the girl ran away once more. However, she crashed directly into Saare. Saare had been searching for her all along. The girl knew exactly why. Saare believed she was the only witness connected to her mother's death. The girl wanted nothing to do with it. But her reaction told Saare everything she needed to know. Years earlier, the girl had worked at Saare's mother's restaurant. After Saare went to prison, her mother had treated the girl like a daughter. Both of them shared the surname Kim, which made the bond even stronger. Desperate for answers, Saare sent the girl an old photograph of herself and her mother. This time, the girl agreed to talk. She revealed what had happened that day. While working as a hotel server, she entered a presidential suite for the first time. Excited, she secretly took out her phone to record the luxurious room. Then she heard someone entering. Startled, she forgot to stop recording. The person who entered was none other than Ha Moo-hyuk. Inside the suite was his mistress, Ms. Roh. The recording captured their argument. Ms. Roh demanded that he marry her. 3 years together means nothing to you? She shouted. If you don't marry me, I'll expose your secrets. After she left, Ha Moo-hyuk coldly ordered one of his men to take care of the situation. Later that very day, Ms. Roh was found dead. The girl showed the video to Saare's mother. They planned to report everything together. But while the girl briefly went to the restroom, Saare's mother disappeared. She saw several men forcing Saare's mother into a vehicle. She chased after them and realized the car belonged to Ha Moo-hyuk. Oddly, his secretary stepped out of the vehicle before it drove away. That same night, Saare's mother died. Terrified, the girl deleted the video. Prosecutor Dong suggested moving her to a safe location. Unfortunately, her boyfriend continued stalking her. He eventually discovered her new address. One evening, he confronted her again. While checking her phone, he found repeated calls from lawyers. At that exact moment, another call came in. The girl tried to explain, but her boyfriend had completely lost control. He violently threw her aside. As the phone continued ringing, he became even more enraged. Finally, he wrapped his hands around her neck. He strangled her to death. The girl's tragic death devastated Saare. It also strengthened her resolve. Although she hated Ha Moo-hyuk more than anyone, she made a shocking decision. She agreed to remarry him. It wasn't because she still loved him. She wanted revenge. Of course, Ha Moo-hyuk had his own agenda. Publicly, he claimed the remarriage was for their son. In reality, he had completely different motives. Mother-in-law immediately became suspicious. She had never trusted Saare. Ha Moo-hyuk tried to calm her. We're family again. But mother-in-law wasn't convinced. She demanded that the couple share a room. Both Saare and Ha Moo-hyuk looked uncomfortable. We've been apart for years, Ha Moo-hyuk explained. We need some time. He even begged his mother to treat Saare better, at least for the sake of his son. Trying to test Saare, mother-in-law ordered her to prepare fruit and bring it to her room. Saare smiled and agreed. A few minutes later, she delivered the fruit. The moment mother-in-law saw it, her face darkened. The fruit had been cut in an intentionally bizarre and disrespectful way. Sare pretended to be innocent. It's been a long time since I've prepared fruit for anyone. My skills are rusty. Then she casually took the plate away. It was a small victory. Later that day, Sare noticed an unfamiliar pair of athletic shoes inside the house. Curious, she asked the secretary whether they had a visitor. She learned that a team leader from Ha Moo-hyuk's company had stopped by. The shoes immediately caught her attention. She recognized them. Waiting outside, she photographed both the shoes and the man wearing them. Then she deliberately approached him. On the surface, she acted friendly. In reality, she was testing whether he recognized her. Sure enough, he respectfully addressed her as Madam. That was enough. Back home, Sare compared the photo of the shoes with old footage showing her mother being taken away before her death. A shocking discovery emerged. The man was actually a missing taxi driver who had vanished long ago. After tracking him for some time, Sare learned that mother-in-law had been secretly meeting him on multiple occasions. Sare finally realized that her mother-in-law had been hiding something from Ha Moo-hyuk. Using her identity as the young madam, she arranged a meeting with the taxi driver. She deliberately showed him the person from the surveillance footage to confirm whether it was the same individual. At a glance, it was obvious. Yet the man firmly denied it was her, just as Sare had anticipated. She deliberately told him, "This is the suspect we've been looking for." Curious, she asked, "So this person took my mom away?" The driver admitted it. "Your wife suspects me." Ha Moo-hyuk was shocked. The driver's motive was simple. He just wanted 2 billion in currency to leave safely. The young master, Ha Moo-hyuk, offered, "Prepare your passport. Tomorrow I'll give you cash, easier for you to use, right?" Everything seemed under control. While waiting at a traffic light, a car began tailing him. He got out, intending to confront the driver, but the man checked his injuries instead and forcibly protected him. He tried to resist, unaware that they were actually saving his life. Meanwhile, Ha Moo-hyuk was obsessively cautious. Every night before sleep, he inspected his bedroom and checked for bugs in the house, even in seams where none could exist. Yet outwardly, Sare had to appear calm. She showed him a video of her mother being taken away a year ago. Pretending to ask if the man resembled the company patriarch, she noted his guilty glance and his fake denial. Sare had already planned her next move. She hinted, "Maybe I was too eager to reopen the case regarding my mother." This provoked Ha Moo-hyuk to react, giving her exactly the effect she wanted. She had him thinking she might expose him, forcing him to act. Later, at the arranged location, the patriarch's car arrived. A single message was sent, "I've arrived, waiting in the car." Suddenly, the car was crushed. From a distance, the patriarch saw the scene and went weak in the knees. He realized at once, the young master intended to silence him. When Sare asked why he wanted to kill her mother, he claimed innocence. "I was only following the young master's orders to take your mother away. Halfway through, he told me to stop. What happened afterward, I didn't handle." Regarding Ms. Ro's case, he became nervous and fled. In his haste, he accidentally ran someone over. The victim survived but remained in a coma. Sare, meanwhile, confronted Ha Moo-hyuk. "I suspect the patriarch was the one who killed my mother. I just wanted to face him directly. But when I mentioned your mom, he immediately ran off. Your mother and the patriarch are connected." She planned to show the surveillance to the mother-in-law. She glanced at it once and quickly disassociated herself. Sare's statement to Ha Moo-hyuk was deliberate. "According to my investigation, a year ago the patriarch used your personal driver to take my mom. Did you order the driver?" This was meant to unsettle Ha Moo-hyuk. There was no solid evidence, so he could not accuse his mother. Even though the mother dismissed the case, Ha Moo-hyuk now had suspicions of his own. Inside the house, Sare executed her plan quietly. The mother-son duo noticed inconsistencies and pretended ignorance while each cast suspicion elsewhere. At the dining table, they attempted to unsettle Sare, but she had already anticipated every move. Her phone buzzed, signaling the next phase of her plan. While pretending to be an ally, Ha Moo-hyuk received a phone call from a National Assembly office. Instantly, his heart jumped, thinking it was about approval from the Law Academy. Instead, he was questioned about whether their company employed someone named Kong, team leader. At that moment, both Ha Moo-hyuk and his mother felt relieved. Sare then casually asked Ha Moo-hyuk whether he had handled the money properly. Mother-in-law immediately became nervous, confirming that only a small handling fee had been paid. Sai continued pretending to be curious and asked, "Then where did the 2 billion come from? It's now under police investigation." That single question immediately made mother-in-law realize that her son had been hiding things from her. Sare temporarily took the child into another room while police activity was happening outside. Mother-in-law was confused by the commotion, but Sare finally stopped pretending. She calmly told them to go outside and face the situation. Then she directly asked, "Which one of you is going with the police?" The police arrived to arrest Ha Moo-hyuk on suspicion of murdering Ms. Roh. Ha Moo-hyuk immediately pointed at his own mother. "It was my mother. I have nothing to do with it." He even added that team leader Kung was involved a year ago. Although the mother was arrested, Ha Moo-hyuk did not feel relief, only resentment. He blamed Sare for everything. Soon after, Sare received a call, realizing Ha Moo-hyuk was beginning to lose control. But she still agreed to meet him. The moment she got into his car, she was drugged and knocked unconscious. Ha Moo-hyuk knew she would never willingly let go of the case. When Sare woke up, she found herself locked inside a warehouse. Ha Moo-hyuk demanded that she record a statement saying her mother had always intended to commit suicide. Sare refused completely. Instead, she repeatedly asked him, "What did you do to my mother?" Ha Moo-hyuk lost control and nearly struck her. But he noticed she was secretly wearing a recording device. He picked it up and realized she had been recording everything. He then made a decision. Sare was locked inside a shipping container. He gave her one last chance. "If you don't record the statement, this container will be shipped to the United States in 5 minutes." The sound of the cargo operation outside made it clear he was telling the truth. In desperation, Sare pleaded with him, but she never gave in. Ha Moo-hyuk walked away, believing everything was under control. However, the moment he stepped outside, he was surrounded. It was all part of Sare's plan. The entire kidnapping had been a trap. Seeing Ha Moo-hyuk still trying to pretend innocence, Sare finally snapped. She struck him with a powerful kick and revealed the recorded confession as evidence. With everything exposed, Ha Moo-hyuk's crimes were fully revealed. And as Sare looked at him coldly, she made one final remark. "Maybe your mother will be the first one to greet you when you see her again." That's a wrap, my friend. Make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment from the heart. If you're really feeling the love, share this video with your crew. And yo, check out the channel. I've got tons of videos you're going to vibe with. Catch you in the next one.